Hey, hi, howdy. We are back and we are continuing to talk about joy. Now, I want to start this video by asking you who in your life brings you joy? Take a second to think about it, right? Because I think it's actually good. You might even be grateful for some of the people in your life. Who in your life brings you joy? And then once you have like some people in mind, I want to ask you, what about them brings you joy? What about them brings you joy? And then the final question, what are the circumstances or situations, if you're like thinking back, like when are the times when they bring you joy? When do they bring you joy? I think it's good to think about. First of all, just because uh, it's good to remember those things, right, and be grateful for the people that we have in our lives that bring us joy. But then second, just to give ourselves a second to think, who in my life does bring me joy? How do they do that? When does it happen? So that like we can actually try to increase those types of situations in our lives, right? Maybe we have friends that aren't great friends, right? We have friends who bring us joy, but then we have friends who are just friends out of convenience or for social status, or they've been our friend for a long time now, so we kind of feel like we have to be their friend, whatever the reason, right? But we have the people who bring us joy, and then we kind of have these other people. And it's not that these people are bad, but if we want joy in our life, maybe, right, we can invest in these relationships. So I think it's good to think about that. And if you haven't already guessed, the theme for today is people who bring us joy. People who bring us joy. And the verse that we're going to look at is kind of crazy. When I found this, I was like, wow, this is like perfect for the times that we are in. This verse is perfect for the times that we are in. So I'm going to read it and then we'll talk a little bit about it and continue to talk and think about, right, people bringing us joy. People bringing us joy. So let's get into the verse. The verse is from Second John. So if you are looking it up in your Bibles, right, we have John the Gospel, which is in the beginning of the New Testament, but then much later on we actually have First John, Second John, Third John. Those are towards the end of the Bible. So we are in Second John, and we are only looking at verse 12 from chapter 1. I don't even know if there's more than one chapter, but we're looking at verse 12. It says this: I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face so that our joy may be complete. So this is an interesting verse, right? John is writing this letter to this group of people and he's like, there's so much I want to tell you, but I'm not going to put it to pen and paper. And why not? Because I want to tell you face to face so that our joy may be complete. Now, in today's modern world, right, we don't really spend a ton of time writing letters. Maybe every once in a while we'll write a card, and maybe every like once in a blue moon we will write a letter, but it's pretty rare, right? It's pretty rare. But the reason I said like this verse is crazy how it applies to today. We've all been like sheltering in and quarantining, but now the world is starting to open up again, right? So when I read this verse, I was like, okay, sure, we might not write in like pen and paper, but what are the modern day equivalents, right? What are the modern day equivalents? We have email, we have social media, and then we have this thing that we have YouTube, right? And then we have this thing that took off last year, which apparently was a thing years before, but I had never heard of it. But Zoom, right? Where we could talk and interact and we could see each other, but we weren't in the same room, right? And then there's all these stories and articles that were coming out about like Zoom fatigue, right? And I definitely saw that like as our Zoom meetings continued on and continued on, but then as like your schools became full Zoom, right? Like attendance at our meetings went down because it's like I don't want to do more Zoom, even if it's with people that I love. I don't want to do more Zoom. Now, does that mean it's because you don't like those people? No, but spending time with people in this way, this like digital way, is not what makes our joy complete, right? And we're feeling that. We're excited about that now, where there's like this hope of like, oh wow, it's like super safe to go be around people and go do stuff again, right? That feels great. That feels great. And I think we need to pay attention to that as we transition back to like what the world will look like again, right? Because I know personally, like it's so easy to spend so much time on social media and looking at people's posts and posting your stuff and commenting and liking on people's stuff that it feels like, oh, I'm staying connected to this person. But if this pandemic taught us something, it's that digital connection is not like the end all be all. It's like a poor substitute for face to face connection, right? Face to face connection. So, again, when I was talking earlier about like who are the people in life that bring you joy, how do they bring you joy, and what are the circumstances, maybe we can amplify those types of situations and spend less time, right, on social media, on technology, right? Because those things are great substitutes for when it's hard to be around other people, right? But they will never replace, they're a poor replacement for in person, face to face, make our joy complete. And so I can sympathize with the people who really wanted to get back to the world the way it was and maybe did it a little bit too early or did it a little bit unsafe, right? Because I think we all felt that. It's like, I just want to be around people. It's nice, right? It's nice. It makes our joy complete. And maybe you're a person who has a little bit of anxiety about the world going back. Like, I'm not sure I'm ready to go be around a bunch of people. And that is a total valid feeling. However, I think it's important to remember that the technology was never a replacement, right? It was never a replacement of human contact, right? But it was an alternative when we couldn't. And so it's important that we get back to being face to face with other people, right? Even with our youth group, right? Zooms were fun at first and our online game night, like, oh, this is interesting, right? But once we started being able to meet face to face, person to person, it was so much better, right? Even if the time was maybe very similar in what we do, just being around people, there's something intangible that matters about being face to face. So, my encouragement to you is continue to think, who brings me joy in my life? What is it about them that brings me joy? When are they bringing me joy? And how can I increase those types of times? And obviously, we're not fully back yet, so how can I increase those types of times in a safe way? But, right, be around the people who lift you up, who bring you joy, not the people bringing you down constantly. Those are not great friends. It's important to love them. We can have people in our life who are like that, but we can't rely on those kind of people to bring us joy. So that's it for Joy Week 2. Next week will be our last week in our Joy series. Looking forward to it. Hope you have a good week. Talk to you then.